Good morning, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Monday, May 31st, 2021. Fire potential impacts for the next few days are shown here. The big story here is the heat that's going to be building into the Great Basin, with highs reaching the mid to upper 90s across even the northern and central valleys. But for today, we have some gusty winds across southern and southwest Utah, with some isolated thunderstorms continuing over eastern Utah. Tomorrow the winds die down and we see just some very isolated lingering thunderstorms over far southeast Utah, with that heat really building into the Great Basin by Wednesday. Yesterday we did have some thunderstorm activity, mainly over central and eastern Utah, particularly across these southeast Utah higher elevations here. Some of these storms did have a little bit of precipitation with them. Fire activity from yesterday is shown here. We had a little outbreak around the St. George area, and then a few fires along the Sierra Front as well. The precipitation for the past 30 days shows a pretty good amount of precip over northern and northeast Nevada, above normal for the time of year, but elsewhere across the basin the values are pretty poor for the month of May, especially over Utah and southern Nevada. ERCs continue to be quite high across the southern Great Basin, particularly southern Utah, southern Nevada. Some of these stations are even clocking in above the 90th percentile. A closer look at the Sierra Front ERCs. Here we are, the ERCs have been on a pretty sharp increase over the last couple of days and are sitting right near historical records for the time of year. And the same is true over far southern Utah and the Arizona Strip, where those values are above the 90th percentile, really getting pretty close to the 97th percentile and sitting right on those historical records. Sagebrush live fuel moisture for western Nevada is shown here just below normal for the time of year. And further south in the Ely area, those values are hanging out around the historical minimums for the time of year also. This morning's satellite imagery is showing a little bit of lingering moisture over far eastern Utah as kind of a larger trough exits off to the east, and we begin to see this high pressure ridge, which will be the dominant feature for the week, building in just off the Pacific coast. So for this afternoon, pretty much dry and warm today, just those very isolated thunderstorms there in eastern Utah. No high risk issued for those thunderstorms just yet. And again, looking right at the higher elevations of central and eastern Utah for where we could see thunderstorm development this afternoon. And then some gustier winds there along western Utah. Not super strong winds, looking in that 25 to 30 mile an hour range, but just a little bit higher than normal. On Tuesday, the ridge begins to move a little bit closer to the Great Basin for warming temperatures across the west and dry conditions, sunny and dry conditions. Maximum temperatures on Tuesday are going to be in the mid-90s across much of western Nevada and even up into the Boise area, 90 degrees for a high on June 1st. And very warm across the south. Relative humidities are also low, especially across the southern Great Basin. On Wednesday, the ridge moves overhead over the Great Basin. This is where we'll see our temperatures really continue to increase and spread across the region. Continued dry conditions as well. So on Wednesday, temperatures bumping up pretty close to 100 degrees in Boise, even 97 in Reno, upper 90s, pretty much all the lower valleys. Vegas is up over 104 degrees, so a very warm day on Wednesday. There is a little bit of moisture that squeaks in from the east that may produce a few isolated thunderstorms over the higher elevations of Utah, but shouldn't be anything too major. 3-day precipitation totals shown here, highlighting the thunderstorms mainly for today along the spine of Utah there. On Thursday, the ridge remains in place for continued hot and dry conditions. Our dryness levels continue to kind of increase or dry out as we sit underneath this ridge. On Friday, the ridge looks to break down just a little bit. So our temperatures may come down by Friday, closer, I wouldn't say normal yet, but at least not quite as hot possibly with that ridge moving off. So we'll look for a slight decrease in temperatures and see there. It looks like there's a little bit of moisture coming in from the south here over New Mexico. We'll see if that produces any isolated thunderstorms over Utah. And then on Saturday, this trough has been looking like it's wanting to come into the Pacific Northwest. Shouldn't bring us anything. Looks like it's not bringing any significant precipitation or anything to the Great Basin, but may increase winds, especially over Idaho and the northern half of Utah and Nevada. And it does still look like maybe there's a little bit of moisture continuing to linger across the southern Great Basin. We'll have to watch this just to see how widespread any of these thunderstorms may become. And on Sunday, that low still in place over the Pacific Northwest, keeping westerly flow over the Great Basin. So more moderating temperatures just a bit across the area, but still quite dry. So extended forecast, or the extended precipitation forecast here puts a little bit more precip into southern Utah. So maybe as we look at some of that moisture coming in from New Mexico, we could see some thunderstorms over the higher elevations there in southern Utah, but not much from that next low coming into Idaho. And then the extended forecast for June 7th through the 13th is calling for continued above normal temperatures, mainly for Utah and Nevada, and below normal chances for precip, especially across the north. So we will see what develops there. And this concludes today's fire potential briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest updates.